She is from USA, founder of Crawling Lotus, and her co-speaker, Miss Varija Bajaj, Lotus Lifestyle Varija, India. So, without wasting our time, I would like to invite Miss Julia Beck to give her a brief introduction and about our topic.
Thank you. So I'm here to talk about motherhood and the definitions that we like to put around that. So there's a lot of expectation that I think that through generations, a lot of the women who are new moms are finding that they're redefining what motherhood means to them, and that's very powerful. So we have our old, our ancestors, our mothers and our grandmothers who had their way of doing things. And a lot of times it's very different than the way that maybe we wanted to do things. And so, for instance, in the States, back in the 40s, I was just talking to her about this, a lot of the women, they did not breastfeed their babies. If you breastfed, you're poor. Science is better. And so you formula fed, always. You fed your baby from a can. You didn't work. You had expectations of these things. But now we have this revolution going on in the States where women are wanting to give birth naturally, they're wanting to breastfeed their babies, they're wanting to attachment parent. And so their mothers and their grandmothers don't understand this, and they're not getting the support that they need in this journey through motherhood, which is so personal. Motherhood is personal. Your body is literally taken over for your child, and you have to sacrifice yourself, your health, your time, everything about you to have a baby. And we are kind of put on the back burner for a little bit. And instead of being Julia, I am mom. And I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in the store and there's a kid who's all like, Mom! I'm like, and I don't even have my kids here, And so it's that role, it's that mother, and we have these high expectations of what that looks like. Now, for me personally, I was a motherless daughter. I was born to a woman who was a severe alcoholic, and she was very young. Her parents were alcoholics and not there for her either, as were their parents and their parents. This is down the line. We see this happen a lot. There's a lot of cyclic abuse that happens in many families, and it's very easy for us to fall in line and just continue the cycle. It's so much harder to awaken from that and say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to perpetuate that pain in my child. But you don't know how. You were not taught. Nobody was there to teach me how. So as I grew up, I had a lot of anger. I'm the Aries. So I'm very feisty. I have a lot of fight in me. And so at about the age of 12, when I got into foster care, I ended up in lockup a lot. And through my experience in my juvenile detention years, I met a lot of other broken children. And I quickly realized that at about the age of 11, 12, no longer is it you're acting out because these awful things happen to you. Now you're the problem. It's not because of what you've been through. Now you're an issue. And so teenagers often get lost in this system. And it's so much easier to repeat the pattern because nobody taught you better, nobody nurtured you, nobody loved you. And so it's easier to just say, well, F it. I'm going to start drinking. I'm going to start doing the same things that everybody did before me because it's all we know. It's very hard to make a conscious decision to heal what's happened to you, to break the cycle, and to do differently for your children. So I made that choice. I think a lot of people do that though, right? They're like, I'm never going to be like my mother. I'm not going to be anything like her. And then you hear your mother come out of your voice all the time. You're just like, oh, what happened? And I did. I was like, I'm just going to do everything. I'm going to do nothing that she did. And then that's how I'll do it right. And to a point that worked for me. But there was a lot of healing I had to do first. And I had to really accept and understand and find compassion for my mother. And one time in my healing journey, I was telling somebody about this, and they said to me, if your mother was in a wheelchair, would you expect her to walk? And I said, well, of course not. And they said, your mother was in an emotional wheelchair. She could not be what you needed her to be. Because I always found it so ironic that her excuse for not being there for me was, well, my parents were never there for me. My parents were alcoholics, and they were abusive to each other, and I'm thinking, do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you're saying? Why would it make sense then to do that to your children? And so I think I was kind of born without those rose-colored glasses. You know, when you're in foster care and when you have these, you know, a difficult childhood, you don't get that privilege of feeling like the world is perfect and that you're cared for and that everything will be safe and okay. You don't have that. You know that things can get dangerous. You know that you can get hurt, and you know that you need to be aware of everybody around you and that you have to take care of yourself. So when I became a mother, I was 16 years old. And it's interesting too, because I was in counseling from a very young age, and my counselors would tell my foster parents or whoever I was with, she's gonna be a mom when she's a teenager. I'll tell you right now. Because I was so determined to prove my mom wrong. I was going to make sure that I did it differently. So I got pregnant when I was 16, no surprise. And I had my child, I had him totally naturally, which to people was like, whoa, you had your baby naturally? Oh my gosh, how did you do that? Why would you even do that? For me personally, it wasn't this hippy-dippy like, oh, natural birth, man, it's great. I was freaked out by a needle in my spine. I was like, dude, I'm good on that. Nope, and I'll have 20 kids before I put anything in my spine. So it was really out of fear that I did it. And then when I did it, I was like, oh, it was no big deal. It was fine. And so people were responsive to that in a way that shocked them, and that response kind of shocked me. I think it's also because I'm a tough Aries, you know, like I was like, I can totally give birth, whatever. And so, you know, I just had that attitude, and people around me started becoming inspired by that. And so in the year 2000, I attended my first birth with a friend of mine who was pregnant. She was very young as well, and I helped her through this journey of having her baby. And I left that experience knowing that I had helped her, that she had gotten through that, and that I had been a lighthouse for her. And I left that experience, I had no idea what a doula was at that time. That's what I do professionally now. And I just kind of left thinking, man, I hope somebody else asks me to go to their birth someday. That was really cool. And it didn't happen again until about 2004. And a friend of mine asked me once again, because I've always been that friend that people call, you know, when they need somebody to talk to. I've been through a lot, and I have some words of wisdom to share, and so it was natural for people to want me to be there. And we were reading an Ina May book together, came across the word doula, and I said, hot damn, I'm a doula. That's me. And so I started training. I became a certified doula in 2006. I've been now being a professional doula for 10 years. So I'm almost to 130 babies. Just a lot of babies, yeah. And it's been incredible to immerse myself, and ironic, right, to immerse myself in this motherhood scene, especially as a person who didn't have that and had to kind of define it for myself, which in many ways was a gift. It was a gift because I, working with these moms, see how much influence there is and how much pressure there is from communities, from friends, from family, of how you should birth, how you should feed your baby, how you should raise these children. There's a lot of expectation around motherhood. Now, what happens to the mom who doesn't fit that role? What happens to her? What happens to the identity of Julia? What happens to the identity of, you know, whoever? You're not just mom when you have a baby. Do you know how easy it is to get pregnant? Like, you know, it can't be a complete redefinition of who you are. But a lot of women get lost. They get lost in that role. And so it's been amazing to help walk them through and be this other voice that says, you know what, you're a powerful woman. And that power in you is going to make you a great woman or a great mother. And that's what's going to help your children They will reflect that back to you, and then you reflect that freedom. You reflect that in them to say, this is how I choose to do it, but you know what, you can do it however you want to do it. You can do whatever you want. That's revolution. I truly believe that if you heal the women, you heal the children, you heal the world. We're raising the future. Thank you. She's feeling it. And so it's one of the greatest contributions that I think that we can make is really valuing mothers as they are. So however it looks. Now in the States, and I'm not sure how it is here, it's so different culturally everywhere, but I know in the States we have a lot of mommy wars. Mommy wars. Everybody's got an opinion. As soon as you're pregnant, everyone wants to give you advice.
We have that
Here as well.
Oh, it's terrible. You know?
All the time.
Oh my goodness. And, you know, everyone thinks they got the answer for you, and they want to fill you with horror stories, and they want to tell you all of the things that you should and shouldn't do. And I tell everyone, blow it off, and do what resonates with you. Because let's take one topic, vaccinations. Oh Lord. So you'll get people on one side that are absolute no vaccination, and then you get the other people who are absolute yes vaccination. I tell the parents that I'm working with, look, there's risk on every side. No matter what you choose, it's risky. So find out the facts and do what resonates with you, regardless of what the opinion is. And I also try to remind people that when people have that opinion, and when they're throwing that out, I'll get that all the time. Just telling people that I'm a birth doula, oh my gosh. People will instantly have to, well, let me tell you why I had to give birth in the hospital, because otherwise me and my baby would be dead. You know, and I have to realize, I have to step back and say, okay, you know what? I am right now a mirror for that person. She's not really talking to me. She's got things within her, and she has to justify whatever happened to her, because I'm a reflection of that now.
Yeah.
You know, and it's, people have that idea of, doulas are just natural birth. That's not what it's about. It's about knowing your options. It's about knowing that you have a voice in this, and that you have choices, and that your choices should be respected by doctors, by your partner, by your friends, by your family, and that's empowerment. And then when we can do that, we learn how to make better decisions for our children forever, right? Because there's a lot of decisions to be made when you're pregnant, a lot. And so when we are told, you know what, this power is yours, do what you can do. Don't worry about the expectations others have on you, because you know what, no matter what you do, someone's not going to like it. So don't be afraid to piss people off. That's what you really kind of have to focus on. But then what we find is that when they do that, they're healing themselves as women, because this isn't only about the motherhood aspect, this is about the woman aspect. Women are expected to be certain ways and do certain things, but especially when they become mothers, because now it's not just about you, now you have this child too. So there's so much more pressure on it when you become a mom. But as women, if we're able to step into that power, find our voice when we're pregnant, and then we give birth to that baby from that place of power, we connect better with that child. We are able to raise that child in a better energy, because how you birth really does matter. It matters, She knows. And I think that the big thing we have to remember is that we're all so individual. So now, through my healing journey with my mom, when somebody said that to me, when they said, would you expect her to walk if she was in a wheelchair? And I'm like, no. When they said that, I was released from a cage. I, in that moment, totally accepted her completely as she is, and I found forgiveness for her. I found compassion. I understood that the things that she had been through, this is her journey, that's her story. It doesn't have to define me, but I can at least understand this is just where she's at. She's incapable of being that mother figure for me in the way that I needed and I did deserve. She just wasn't able. But through that, I found so much strength. I found so much healing. And now, because I've been able to forgive her and accept her completely as she is and not have that expectation on her, we have a better relationship than we ever have. Because now I can be in the moment with her. I can, every moment that I actually do get, I'm there. I'm not expecting more. I don't need more. I think there's so many archetypes of mothers. I was taught a lesson many years ago about butterfly mother, okay? So butterfly mother is something where we have nurturing mother is the one that we put on a pedestal. She's the ideal mom. She's the one that is fulfilled by motherhood. She loves to cook for her family. She has no problem staying home and taking care of the kids. This is who we revere. We revere that is mother. Then you have butterfly mother, okay? And the way that it was compared is how, a coyote has her pack. She has to leave for days at a time sometimes. And they have to just trust that she's gonna come back, and she's gonna come back with food and wisdom for her pack. They have to take care of themselves in the meantime. There's a lot of knowledge and things that butterfly mother will give to her children that nurturing mother never could, and vice versa. And so we need to find a way to really embrace every single kind of mom and really find forgiveness for where every woman is at. So many women give birth from so many different places within themselves. I mean, like I said, so easy to get pregnant. I mean, and not for everybody, but for most people, it's pretty easy. It can happen in like 5 minutes, And so for that, right? Worst case scenario, 5 minutes. But it's not hard, and so it's one of those things where for that to totally redefine you, and then all these expectations, you're not gonna. It's like university in like a minute. You can't expect that. When you go to university, it lasts years, and there's a reason for that because this is a learning process. And when we lose our identities in that, a lot of women start to have bad feelings about motherhood, and they push their children away from them, and they hate themselves. Oh, the guilt, oh, the mommy guilt. Breastfeeding didn't work for me. I'm a failure. I had a C-section. I'm a failure. It's like, no, honey, you're not. This is just your journey. You just need to take what you're given and make the most out of it, because we are all given different circumstances. We're all given different scenarios in our lives. We're all given different ingredients for a recipe, right? We got to make what we can with it. That's what's in the kitchen. And we might not have everything that everybody else has. I didn't. I had no idea what motherhood was. It chose me, sort of. I was involved. But I think that it's so important to really put a value, even on the most extreme, worst case scenario mom, right? So even the mom who is being abused, she's in that situation, that's her story, that's her thing. And there's something that those kids are gonna get out of that they might not have gotten out of a perfect situation. When I work with parents all the time, I'm telling them, keep your baby alive and do your best. That's all you can do. The rest is extra credit. And we cannot continually put so much expectation on these children and on ourselves. It's unfair to them too. Because if you're too perfect, then you were too perfect, right? and then your children don't know how to resolve conflict. They don't know how to, they need to see you fall down so you can pick yourself back up. And then they know, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be different. It's okay to go against the grain. I'll be okay, and now I know how to resolve these things because I watched my parents do these and pick themselves back up and apologize for their mistakes. It really comes from accountability, and really about accepting who we are. But a lot of women don't know who they are. So when we see pregnant women, it's so important that you take a moment and just tell her how beautiful she is. Don't give her a scary birth story. Instead, just say, you know what, just do your best. Because that's all we can all do. And we are really pioneering a new feminism, Even 50 years ago, the picture for women was very different. And And we're finding this new freedom. And so we're pioneering this new way. And so these expectations that we're laying on women, it's from an old programming. It's from old thought processes and old things that we're re-emerging from and re-examining and saying, does that really resonate with me? Do I have to do it this way? And we have an exciting opportunity to do it how we want to do it and to redefine what motherhood is. And I think in that definition, it needs to include all of the archetypes of mother and appreciating them for exactly who they are and what they're contributing to their children, even if they're not there at all. My mother wasn't really there at all. But I tell you what, by her not being there at all, that made me very strong. It made me very resourceful. It made me resilient. There's so many gifts that I got from my mother that I didn't recognize until much, much later, but they were there. And, and now she likes to be like, look at what I did. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like, look what I did. But I had to take accountability for that and say, I'm going to do it I'm going to do it differently. We have to be free to do that. And we have to find support in our sisters. Your birth doesn't have to look like my birth in order for it to be right. There is no right or wrong with raising children. It just is. But our babies are the future. And if we can really nourish the mother, she will be able to take care of and nourish the family. And that's where we find real revolution. Because I really believe that the problems that we have in this world come from broken children. Broken children grow up to be broken adults. And they don't know how to live still. And so unless we're really nurturing that mother aspect, however it looks, in total acceptance, however that looks, we're not nourishing those children either. We need to be able to embrace these women and take them in, especially if they're not capable, and if they're having a hard time, if they're addicted or they're in a bad relationship. Those are the mothers who need the love and understanding and compassion the most. There's no medals. Nobody's getting a medal for being a perfect mom, because there is no perfect mom. There just isn't. And so I think it's so important for us all to remember to just do the best we can with what we're given and forgive ourselves and release that expectation from our own bodies, from our minds, from our relationships, and from our children too. Because I think, our children, I know my kids, they go to school and they're like, well, so-and-so's mom, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not so-and-so's mom. That's not how I do it. So, no, you can't have an iPad. And that's got to be okay. And that's good for them. They need that. They need us all to make sure that we're giving them that space to say, you know what, yeah, well, I'm against the grain. I don't do things that everybody else does. There's a lot of freedom in that, right? Because then you get that freedom to define yourself. And then your kids get that freedom too. So I think that really we need to focus on not letting what people say or put on us define us. Because we are not that. We are each individuals, and we have power in that. So no matter what your motherhood role looks like, I don't know how many of you in here are moms, but whatever kind of mom you are, thank you for being a mom, and good job. I'm proud of you. So that's what I need to say.